What the fuck? What happened here? Oh, holy...
Thomas stood over Doris's lifeless body, gun still in hand. The air was thick with the sharp scent of gunpowder and something heavier. Finality. There was no room for misinterpretation. The scene spoke for itself. Thomas exhaled sharply, dragging a hand down his face.
Well, damn.
What the hell happened here?
Do you want to get out of this bunker or not?
Yes.
Then shut the fuck up and move.
He stepped into the elevator, swiping his master key card with a practiced flick. The doors slid shut behind them, locking the world of gunfire and corpses on the other side. A low mechanical hum filled the small space as they began their slow ascent.
We're deep underground, so this might take a while.
Miss Dee shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the numbers slowly ticking up. The weight of what just happened, of what was still happening, pressed down like the walls were shrinking in. Then, with the kind of reckless impulse that comes from either shock or sheer defiance, she muttered,
"You hear the one about the skeleton who walked into a bar?"
Shit.
The dimly lit corridors hum with the quiet thrumming of generators as Thomas and Miss Dee make their way through the cold metal hallways of Terminal C. Their boots echo against the steel floor as they ascend toward Terminal A, where the final gateway to the surface lies. After 6 long months, they're finally leaving the confines of Blind Corp's bunker.
Okay, here we are. The surface gate. And I'll be honest with you, Catherine.
I'm ready. 6 months down here, hidden away like lab rats.
It's not exactly what you remember. Joiceville isn't Joiceville anymore.
Thomas pulls a lever beside the door, and the metallic barrier slides open with a loud hiss, revealing a dimly lit passageway. They step into it together, beginning the steep ascent. Along the way, she glances around, her expression unreadable.
I'm fucking ready. Feels like we're about to emerge into a whole another realm, huh? Another new world.
You know, when it all started, when Joiceville was still standing, I used to take my son to the ridge outside the town. We'd sit there for hours, just talk about life, his dreams, about his favorite thing, Minecraft. The kid could spend all day building these worlds, you know, entire towns from scratch. He'll always say, "Dad, when I grow up, I'm gonna build a city, just like Joiceville, but even better."
He sounds like a bright kid. Minecraft, huh? Dylan loved that game too. I mean, my nephew, my niece, them. Dylan, he used to spend hours building these incredible landscapes. He'd talk about it like it was real, like he could walk around it himself. I guess that's something a lot of kids love, huh? Just the creativity.
Yeah, it's funny. Standing in this world now, it's almost like I'm the one in one of those games. Everything broken down, covered in ash and dust, a wasteland, but with the same eerie quiet that comes after you start a new level. Nothing feels quite real.
But this isn't a game anymore, Thomas. You know that better than anyone. Every step we take, it's real. The consequences, the sacrifices. No more.
They continue in silence, the weight of her words settling in. The final gate creaks open, and they step out onto the barren landscape. The remnants of Joiceville sprawled out before them, a twisted, burnt skeleton of the town it once was. Buildings lie in shambles, cars overturned and half buried in rubble. Thick gray ash clings to everything, swirling in the slight breeze. Welcome to Excuses, the podcast that peels back the layers of a small town life, uncovering the hidden horrors lurking just beneath the surface of Joiceville, North Carolina. From the tale of a quaint little diner to the chilling corporate secrets of Blind Corp, this isn't your ordinary post-apocalyptic survival story. No, this is something much darker, much weirder, much funnier, perhaps. Told from the perspective of the only survivor, you'll dive into a quirky, fragmented recollection of chaos and growing dread that led to Joiceville's downfall. Oh, and a little bit of warning before we get started. Excuse Us contains mature content intended for a mature audience. Strong language, and let's just say, a rather twisted sense of humor is intended. Listener discretion is definitely advised.
God, it's worse than I thought. It looks exactly the same and completely untouched. But it is a fucking ghost town.
He takes a deep, shaky breath, steadying himself. She watches his reaction with a quiet, almost calculating gaze, but her expression softens just enough to show a flicker of her own pain. They walk on, picking their way through the ruins, careful with every step. The wind howls through the remnants of buildings, carrying distant echoes of a once thriving town.
You know, my son, you'd probably think this is some kind of adventure, like those post-apocalyptic mods we used to install. He'd laugh and tell me he would rebuild it and would make something new from the ground up. Kids have the way of seeing hope, even when there is none to be found.
Sometimes they are wiser than us, seeing possibilities that, instead of ruins, you know, maybe there's something left here with worth hauling, you know, or maybe we just created our new one ourselves, like with the game.
They approach what's left of the super awesome diner, its once vibrant 1950s exterior now crumbled and gray. The neon sign is shattered, one letter hanging by a wire, flickering faintly in the ash-choked daylight. The tables are overturned, counters scorched, as if a bomb had gone off in the heart of Joiceville's last refuge.
It's strange, seeing it like this. This place was a symbol. People would come here to escape, and even if it was just for a meal, a little piece of the past. Now it's just gone.
The past has a way of catching up, doesn't it? Sometimes it even has teeth. But maybe that's why we're here. Maybe this is where it all begins. Again.
She runs a hand over the rubble, eyes distant, haunted. Thomas notices her expression, a shadow of something deeper than he understands.
You really cared about this place, didn't you? I mean, Len always seemed so grounded here. Like this diner was more than just a building to you.
It was. It is, you know? It was her dream to make something, to create a space where people felt safe. I think it was her way of giving back. Maybe she thought if people had a place to gather, a place to feel human, it'd keep the darkness out. But it didn't, Thomas. Didn't it?
Well, if there is any way to honor that dream, I'd like to try. After everything we've seen, I don't want it all to go for nothing.
Oh, it won't be for nothing. Sometimes, to make something new, you have to burn the old to the ground.
Thomas looks at her, puzzled by her tone, but she simply smiles, a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. The moment stretches, heavy and unspoken between them. They stand together in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Around them, the ruins of Joiceville lie quiet and still, the ghosts of the past hanging heavy in the air. She stands up and walks away. Thomas remains seated with his sight fixed on the horizon, lost in thought. The air is stale, filled with the scent of old grease and something sharper, darker, a lingering reminder of what the diner has witnessed. Thomas stands by a worn, battered counter, staring down at scattered files and notes, the remnants of his desperate search for answers. He's tense, his jaw clenched, his eyes flickering with frustration and exhaustion. Behind him, the door creaks open, and Miss Dee enters, her footsteps soft but purposeful.
Oh, took you long enough to get here. Where did you go?
Well, you know how it is, so many loose ends to tie up these days, things to see, people to say hi to, things to burn up.
Thomas finally looks up, studying her face, searching for a glimmer of the kindness he thought he knew. But her expression is unreadable, poised and somehow colder than he remembers.
Well, we've lost almost everything. 6 months down here, digging through lies, losing good people, Doris, and... for what? Every time I think of those close to the truth, it slips right through my fingernails. But you always seem to know just a little more than you're letting on, don't you, Miss Dee?
She meets his gaze unflinching, and there's a subtle shift, a flicker of something predatory, like a shadow passing over her face. Her lips curve into a faint smile.
I know what I need to know, and I know what I know, Thomas. The things that we've done, the choices we've made, they're all just part of the bigger picture. And isn't that what you've been searching for? The bigger picture?
Funny. You've always had the right words, the perfect stories. The way you talk about this stuff, the little anecdotes about the diner, even Dylan. It is too perfect, isn't it? Like you've been rehearsing it.
A stillness settles between them. Miss Dee doesn't look away, her expression shifting ever so slightly, an almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of her mouth. She lets out a small sigh, her eyes sharpening.
You think you're clever, don't you? Yeah, you always wanted the truth. But you're not prepared for it, Thomas, because you're too wrapped up in what you expect to find. That's not how you look for the truth, Thomas. You don't look for what you want the answers to be. You look for the answers.
So tell me then, enough games, enough whispers. Why don't you just say it?
Miss Dee holds his gaze, the faintest hint of a smirk creeping across her lips, and she crosses her arms, standing taller, her posture shifting into something almost regal.
Fine, since you're so desperate to know. Catherine Lindy is nothing more than a sweet little diner owner stuck in her small, comfortable life. But me, I'm Catherine Susan Dee.
Thomas's eyes widen, his mind racing to piece together the implications. He takes an involuntary step back, his breathing shallow as if he's just glimpsed something monstrous.
Why go through all of this pretending to be her, playing me, playing everyone?
Oh, Thomas, you don't even see the real tragedy here, do you? I didn't do this for you. I did this for Dylan. For Dylan.
Dylan? But they thought thought their mother was dead. He died. They died in the middle of the whole thing. They couldn't experience any of the things that happened unless the timeline is completely wrong.
Because as far as she knew, she was Catherine Lynn Dee. She's nothing to him, not really, but me. I was the one who watched him. I am who knew him before than anyone ever would, ever. And it's something that will haunt me for the rest of my time. Knowing he was out there lost, while I was buried in Blind Corp's web of lies. But make no mistake, Thomas, Dylan may be my son, it may be them, but I'll burn every bridge and every memory to get what I'm owed from Blind Corp.
There's a silence, thick with the weight of her revelation. Thomas takes another step back, his face twisted in shock and betrayal. But before he can respond, Susan's demeanor shifts once again. Cold, calculating, businesslike.
Enough of this. You wanted answers, Thomas, and now you have them. But you're not nearly as useful to me as you once were, so fuck off.
She gestures to the small, unassuming door on the side, beckoning him to step through. Thomas hesitates, his instincts telling him something is wrong, but he's too shaken to resist. It's only when he takes a step forward that he feels the cold press of metal against his ribs. Susan stands firm, his own gun now in her steady grip.
What are you planning?
You'll see. Soon enough. Just step inside.
She holds the door open, her expression unreadable. Reluctantly, Thomas walks through, and as he turns, she closes the door behind him with a soft click. The lock engages, and he realizes too late that he's been trapped. He lunges for the door, banging against it as Susan watches him from the other side of the glass, her face hard, unyielding.
Catherine Lynn Dee had always been the wild one. Long before Blind Corp had its grip on her life, long before the quiet streets of Joiceville would echo her name in whispers, she was a girl with a penchant for trouble and a talent for finding it. She was the eldest Dee, born with a fiery spirit, a quick wit, and an undeniable knack for mischief. But that same spark that made her bold also made her reckless. And it wasn't long before her choices began to carve a path of mistakes that would shadow her for years to come. In her formative years, Catherine struggled to find a sense of purpose. She had dreams, of course, big and burning, but direction was another matter entirely. School bored her, work felt like a cage, and anything that even hinted at structure seemed like an insult to her freedom. So she chased thrills instead, indulging in a string of parties, late nights, and friends who laughed a little too hard and stayed out a little too late. She fell in with crowds who welcomed her with open arms, crowds that embraced her impulsiveness without judgment. They were a patchwork of outcasts and rebels, bound by an unspoken camaraderie that, to Catherine, felt like home. But home is not always safe. It was during these years that she had her first brush with the law. A small crime, a misdemeanor, a night in a cell that should have scared her straight but only emboldened her. After all, she had her family's resources, her parents' money, and the D name to pull her out of any trouble she found herself in, until those strings began to fray. One night of bad choices became another, until she was tangled in a web of close calls, mistakes piling upon mistakes. The trouble, the misdemeanors, the downward spiral of late nights and lost days. Each took a toll on her, chipping away at the girl who once held boundless dreams. Meanwhile, in stark contrast, her younger sister, Susan, was ascending through the ranks of Blind Corp with an ease that felt almost otherworldly. Susan, the bright star, the pride of the Dee family, a scientist, a visionary, working on projects so top secret that even whispers about them were enough to make one feel exposed. Catherine envied her, hated her brilliance sometimes, but she couldn't ignore the love she had for her sister. There was a fierce bond between them that years of resentment couldn't break. They were two sides of the same coin, and though Catherine's life was in shambles, Susan never abandoned her. But there came a point when even Catherine knew she couldn't keep going like this. She was worn down by her own chaos, haunted by the wreckage she'd left in her wake. Failed relationships, broken friendships, a reputation that preceded her wherever she went. Her life felt like a series of dead ends. Every opportunity turned to ash. And then came the last straw, a night she would never fully remember, but one that left her standing alone, empty and afraid. Catherine knew she needed to change, but the question was, how? It was Susan who offered her a way out, a chance at redemption when she could see no path forward on her own. Behind the closed doors of Blind Corp, Susan pulled strings, bending the rules for her sister just this once. She managed to secure Catherine a place in the Super Awesome Diner program. A modest position, but it was a lifeline, a fresh start. Owning a diner wasn't the dream she'd imagined for herself, but it was something solid, something that could ground her in a way she hadn't known she needed. And so, Catherine took the opportunity, humbled and hopeful, ready to prove to herself, to Susan, to everyone, that she could change. The Super Awesome Diner became her sanctuary. It was a throwback to a different time, a nostalgic tribute to classic Americana with chrome booths, neon signs, and a promise of simplicity. She threw herself into it with an energy she hadn't felt in years. She learned every menu item by heart, took pride in the diner's signature awesome fries, and for the first time in her life, felt a sense of real accomplishment. The locals began to recognize her face, trust her, even call her Miss Dee with a kind of affection that felt foreign and warm. She had traded wild nights for early mornings, late-night parties for last-call orders of pancakes and coffee. In that diner, Catherine rebuilt herself. She learned patience, resilience, and found peace in the routine of small, everyday moments. She was finally becoming the woman she had always wanted to be, and she thought she'd left her dark past behind. But shadows have a way of catching up, and Catherine's was no exception. Unbeknownst to her, Blind Corp's reach was far darker and far deeper than she had ever imagined. She had always known that Susan's work was shrouded in secrecy, that Blind Corp was involved in things the average person couldn't fathom. But she had trusted her sister, even when rumors began to spread through Joiceville, even when whispers of audience members and strange happenings around town grew louder. She never suspected her sister's hand in the darkness that was slowly creeping over her new life. Then came the night it all unraveled. The night when audience members came knocking at her diner's doors, shambling, broken figures with vacant eyes and a hunger that seemed endless. The Hawk virus, Blind Corp's twisted experiment, had reached its crescendo, and Joiceville was the stage. Catherine had always called them zombies, but she would never know that her sister, Susan, preferred to call them her audience. The diner was overrun in minutes. Catherine fought as best as she could, barricading doors, using kitchen utensils as weapons. But she was no match for the swarm that poured in, relentless and inhuman. In her final moments, as the last semblance of safety crumbled around her, she could barely make sense of the betrayal. Blind Corp had infected the town, poisoned the water, unleashed horror on the very people they claimed to serve. And at the heart of it, her sister, her brilliant, successful, beloved sister, had been complicit. In a brutal twist of fate, Catherine met her end not by the hands of strangers, but by the creatures her sister's ambition had wrought. As the audience members closed in, tearing down the walls of the diner she had come to love, she fought with a desperation born from knowing this was it, that her redemption would go unfinished. Her last thoughts, bitter and heartbroken, were of Susan and the lie she had built her new life upon. In the end, Catherine Lynn Dee, a woman who had finally found purpose in the ruins of her past, perished in the very diner that had been her salvation, surrounded by shadows. An audience in every sense. An unwilling participant in Blind Corp's experiment, she died not knowing the full extent of her sister's betrayal, but feeling, in her final moments, the sting of it. For Joiceville, her death would be just another tragedy, another victim of the virus that swept through their town. But for Susan Dee, it was a reckoning. A silent, haunted reminder that the path to power was littered with blood, and sometimes that blood belonged to the ones you loved the most. This episode is made possible by listeners like you. Visit our website at lifedesign.net/excuseus.
For support or additional information, please visit our website or Patreon page at patreon.com/rodpoolart.
Tonight's production of Excuse Us, a mystery drama with delightful undertones of humor and eldritch horror,
was produced by Rebecca Lake Pool and Rodrigo Pool. Written and directed and performed by Rodrigo Pool in association with R&R Aside Audio Theater.
Music and sound effects by Epidemic Sound. Some other sound effects were recorded live on set. Voice modulation by 11 Labs. If you're enjoying this production, please make sure to review or subscribe to our show wherever you listen to your podcast.
Check out our Patreon page for bonus content.
Until next time, this
is Rodrigo Pool saying thank you very much for listening.